Okay, so full disclosure, I'm a little bit tired of all the SUVs out there, and I think that this could be the answer to it, the ID Buzz. I mean, just look at it. But I want to know, is it practical? Does it make sense? Can you live with it? What's it like to drive? Getting baby seats in and out, all that kind of stuff. There's a huge buzz about this Buzz, but I want to know, is that just going to fizzle out after a few months, or is this as good as some people are saying it is?
Take a moment. Enjoy the calm. You could be stuck on the N7 with two teething toddlers, but we don't do stress at the AA. We do roadside rescue, and our trained mechanics fix 8 out of 10 problems at the roadside. Buy online now at theAA.ie. Relax. Yellow and black have got your back.
Our day kicked off on a very, very cold winter's morning, minus 1.5 degrees, as we unplugged the cables and packed them away in the ID Buzz's cavernous boot. When we got into the car, it was charged up to 100%. So the thing to do then was to reset the trip meter back to 0, just to get a better feel for how the car would perform in such really, really cold weather, such bad conditions. So it was time to head off on our day then, doing the school run and all the usual things that a family might use the ID Buzz for, just to figure out how practical and useful it really is. Let's have a good look around the outside of the Buzz now, just to get a better feel for it. And it just puts a smile on people's face. I mean, the very front of it itself just looks like a smile, doesn't it? Big mouth just there, cracking a smile. The two lights, IQ lights, they look like eyes. And then this big bulbous nose, which is the kind of classic styling VW badge. I think it looks great. A little bit of honeycomb down the end, housing the sensors. And we'll get onto that when we're driving it. Around the side, you start to get a picture for the bulk of this vehicle. However, it's not actually that long. It's only about 4.7 meters long, which is similar to the likes of the Kia EV6 and actually fractionally shorter than a Tesla Model Y, believe it or not. We are on the 21-inch rims here with the aero hubcaps inserted. They do drop down depending on the spec that you go for. We've got pretty much the top spec just here today in the two-tone paint, which I love. This car just shouts, look at me, and why not go for the two-tone paint? Big chunky mirrors just here. I like the way the ace pillar is quite split, which really, really helps with visibility when you're inside. Big chunky door handles. They sound great. Electronic doors, not on all specs, but we have them here today. I like it. Really smooth. And then at the back, this is where your charge flap is, just there. Bit of a sail, quite big. Why wouldn't they just put it in the front of the VW badge? But anyway, that's a lot of manufacturers are going that way these days. Yeah, big bulk of a car. Bit of context, I'm 6'2", so pretty much the same height as this MPV. Around the back you got your shark fin aerial just up the top there, and this tiny little spoiler that juts out, housing a brake light there. Wiper blade, great to have, you don't always get one these days. And I love this light bar that comes all the way across the back just here. Huge big badge again, but it's a real big end, isn't it? They haven't gone for sleekness here. The design features they've just kind of left to the side just to maximize the space inside, but still have managed to design something that I think is pretty cool, with a very, very low entrance and automated tailgate just here. Look at that, absolutely huge aperture just there, and we're going to talk about the space and what's inside that in a lot more detail. And love it. It's a big tailgate. Wouldn't want to be lifting that up and down all day, would you? It takes a while actually, it's so big. First stage of the school run is done. Both kids dropped off and the buses handled it really, really well. My wife actually came with me today because she'd never been in it before, and she was actually able to work from the chair just here beside me because there's a 3-pin socket, so she had her laptop plugged in and just ran a hotspot through her phone. But the kids loved it as well, the idea of climbing up into the cabin, and all the other parents actually, when we stopped at the schoolyard, people were coming over and asking, oh, what is that? And actually a couple of people we saw took out their phones to take a picture of it. So it's done really well. In terms of efficiency now, we're having a shocking performance so far, not down to the car though. We've used 9% of the battery to do 19 kilometers in total. But that's because the doors are constantly being opened, closed. I've got the heating on. We're doing short journeys. So this is the absolute worst case scenario. And we're still tracking for 250 kilometers. And this, I think, will be capable of a lot more. But let's get on with the rest of the day and see how the Buzz gets on. We decided to give the Buzz a good wash at the local car wash because it had gotten quite dirty from all the slushy roads on the morning journey. So with the lads having done a great job, we headed back to the car park to have a good dig around inside the boot and figure out just how good this Buzz was. Let's talk space and practicality in the Buzz, because let's face it, that's one of the main reasons you're going to buy something like this. Electric tailgate, that's great because it's a big old boot to be lifting up and down. Now, have a look at that in here. We've got a parcel shelf, which slides in and out. Space underneath that there to the floor is 1,121 litres. Absolutely huge. And obviously you can slide that back if you're not worried you need an extra bit of space, but it even comes out as well. So you just detach it there and whole shelf can come out altogether. At that stage now, we're out to 2,120 litres. It's absolutely gigantic. You can fold the back seats down. They're a 40-60 split, which makes it flush with this floor just here. Now, that isn't just for show. It's actually really practical. It's great. I really, really like it as a feature because you can store things underneath. In this case, we've got charging cables in that little bin just there. But that space goes all the way into the back seats, and you can put stuff that's a little bit more delicate, or you don't want to get crushed out of the way and have bulkier things on top. It's really up to you. And you can remove it if you want that extra bit of space as well. So there's little nuts there you can unscrew, and you don't need any tools. You can do it all manually, which is great. Very, very practical. Little 12-volt socket, a couple of tie hooks just there. It's great. Eventually there'll be a 7-seater version, and you can see some of the features up here as well, little armrests and cup holders. Just here, not on the option that we have today, but you can get it, which has the tow. So a little button there, flick that, falls out the bottom, kick it into place, and it's rated for up to a ton braked. So hugely practical, huge amount of space. There we go. It's time to take the Buzz out for a spin. Now, we're not going to spend too long on this section really. We just want to cover the kind of highlights and the stuff that you need to know about. So let's start off with just power. Is it strong enough? Because it's a big old bus this, and you have got a 150 kilowatt motor in this, which is good for 200 horsepower and just over 300 newton meters of torque. So it's got absolutely loads to get you going. There's no shortage of power here. Even with, a payload of just under 600 kilos to max it out, you'll still have plenty. In fact, here we are, we're about to turn up a very, very steep hill, and we're in pretty bad conditions as well. It's only, through 3 degrees Celsius at the moment. And I know this road is well gridded, but this is quite a steep hill. If I floor it, taking off, yeah, no hassle at all getting up there. And I like the way the throttle is mapped as well. Now, one slight bugbear is from very, very low speeds or from stop. When you press the accelerator, there's just a little jump at the start. Now, it's quite easy. You just get used to it, and then you know to not press the accelerator to make that happen. But it takes a little bit of getting used to. But after that, it's a real smooth transition. You're not waiting for revs to build up. This is so quiet in here. And I'm not even comparing that to a van. I'm comparing that to all the other vehicles I've driven recently, and the Polestar 2 was a very, very nice car that I had. But in terms of sound insulation and smoothness, this is it's brilliant. Yeah, whatever they've done to the wheel arches, there's no double glazing on the window, although you might have suspected it because it is so quiet in here. But it's just incredibly comfortable. And large part that's down to this being an electric drivetrain, fully electric, no hybrids, no engines at all, just that motor. And it makes it so smooth to drive, especially in lower speed traffic. Like where we are now, it's a lot of stop start. Now, it's not one pedal driving, but when I ease off the accelerator, it'll bring the car all the way down to about a walking pace. And then once you are stopped at a traffic lights or in traffic or something like that, it has what's called auto hold, So it will keep the car still. So you can take your foot off the brake and accelerator and it's not going to move. It'll just stay there. Whenever you want to move on again, just press the accelerator and go. So talking about numbers is all well and good. 1,000 litres fall down the seat, it goes out to 2,000 litres. But we need to get a sense of what that's like in reality. What does it mean? What does that space do for you? Well, let's just say you've got a young family, all the paraphernalia that goes with that. Let's see what that looks like. And as you can see, loads of gear here. So let's see, does it fit in? Let's go with the big suitcase first. We'll get rid of the parcel shelf for now. We can put that, in fact, it's so big, we can just slide it in there. That's the child's, I swear. And look at that, absolutely loads of space left. I mean, we haven't even come out towards the boot. You would fit at least double that in again. It really is absolutely fantastic space and practicality in the Buzz. Gotta love this power tailgate, really helps. Another thing I like about the Buzz is how the suspension is set up. So with a lot of vehicles this size, they have to really firm up the suspension. It can make it a little bit uncomfortable over ramps and smaller bumps and potholes, but this does extremely well. We're just going through a bit of a rough patch at the moment. I can hear the baby seats shaking there, but the Buzz is just so steady. And then even over ramps as well, it's set up nice and soft. Not so much that it lolls about too much in the corner and it feels uncontrollable, but it does take those little bumps, the kind of ramps that you get in housing estates and, at the entrance and exit to your school car park, those kind of things. And it takes all those very, very well. In fact, overall, the driving dynamics are much, much more like an SUV than a van. Even though this does have the height and the shape of it, it does feel much more car-like than you'd expect. And as I'm sitting here fighting for words and a narrative to explain that, I think the best way to go about this would be for you just to call up your local Volkswagen dealer and say, I want to test drive the ID Buzz, because until you've sat in this, driven it around and experienced it, you won't get it until you actually experience it. So what about occupants if you're inside it? Is it just a huge big boot and then it's really, really cramped inside? Well, that's not the case. Let's have a good look. So for a bit of context now, I am 6'2", so about 1.88 meters or thereabouts. I'll get in, step up into it a little bit, and it just feels so open and airy in here. I mean, there's just windows all around. Panoramic roof would be nice, but I think that might come with an option down the line. Now, I've got this, let's see, put it into a comfortable position for me, because it's almost kind of like van-like in terms of the seating position. It's a real captain's armchair. You're up a little bit more, and that is a nice comfortable position for me. There's also so much space here in the middle. In fact, the whole central unit, you can actually just take out like that and get rid of it. Do you know what? I'd be tempted to get rid of it. There's so many cubby holes in here at the door, across the dash, that you don't really need this. So let's just put that down there, out of the way for now, and have a look in the back. I've got buttons here, so just open it up. Completely flat floor, because this is a battery electric vehicle. You don't need that transmission tunnel, and I can actually fit in the back here as a large enough adult and still have space. But as you can see, the baby seats are in here as well, and there's just still so much space, really. And even if I'm sitting there, I've still got 3, 4, 5 inches, and sitting upright, another 3 or 4 inches headroom as well. Absolutely brilliant for space. And these chairs do go forward and back as well. Oh, which one? I'm on the wrong one. This one here, as you can see. So you can slide it forward to make more space in the boot, or slide it back. And also the backrests recline a little bit as well, just to make it that bit more comfortable, with a handle just here. So what about batteries and range? What are we talking about? Because this is all electric. Well, the ID Buzz at the moment now in time there will be longer wheelbases, there might be battery variants, but at the moment you're getting a 77 kilowatt hour usable battery. That's the energy capacity of the battery. Now WLTP is just over 400 kilometers, so the advised range, they'll say, is just above 400 kilometers. In reality, you're not always going to get that. So at the moment where we've got pretty cold weather, when I got up this morning it was -1, now it is 2.5 degrees Celsius. And I've been doing a lot of short hops in this, a lot of stop-start traffic, keeping the cabin warm, doors open for kids getting in and out. And the average consumption is pretty bad, I would say. So we're at 25.7. Now that's not bad for this car, for what we've been doing today. I'm actually kind of impressed by that. So at 25, that would have us on track for a range of 300 kilometers. And I would say that that is about the worst that the ID Buzz would do. Maybe barreling down the motorway in winter, it would be in that kind of mid 200s. But in general driving, I think even in the depths of winter like we are now, you're looking at a solid 300 to 350 kilometer car. And even think in the summer, if you're doing, kind of careful driving, you'll crack 450 out of this, I would say. So not exactly a range monster, but it's got a big old battery and it'll do you perfectly well. Which is handy as well, because there's a little 3-pin socket down here, which is great. So you can plug in your laptop or devices. You could charge up mobile phones, tablets, all that kind of stuff. Apart from the USB-C cables, which there are loads of around. Put it into park and there we go.
I was hugely impressed with the ID Buzz so far. The practicality and the usability were absolutely incredible. There was so much space inside it. And the driving dynamics were really good as well. I really enjoyed driving around town in it. But I was beginning to get quite frustrated at the user interface, the software, and this is something that VW have been criticised for. So I decided to meet AA Communications head Paddy Coleman, who had some experience with the system.
Paddy, thank you very much for joining us, and specifically just to talk about the user interface and the software system here, because you have experience with VW, you used to work for them, is that right?
Yeah, ex-Volkswagen employee, and was involved in the launch of ID3 and ID4 to Ireland before I jumped ship. But I know some people do complain about the infotainment system, the buttons in particular. I am used to them, and I suppose I would argue that once you have been in this car for a couple of weeks, it won't be an issue. It's a simple enough system in terms of tiles and menus, very much like you would have on a tablet or a mobile phone. The main ones you'll use are on the front page, so you'll have your telephone, your radio, your navigation. Your navigation, of course, has your inbuilt EV charging stations and your favourites too. The vehicle will give you the information on your performance, your EV performance, and any sort of status updates, be it issues with tyre pressure or when you're due a service and the like as well. Charging, of course, which is the important information. This I've seen, and you and I met a guy down in Portlaoise, and he didn't even know this, and he had an ID3 where he could pull this slider backwards and charge to 80% and that would stay there if he didn't, wanted to use his battery to its optimum by never, not charging it to 100% all the time. But lots of people, if they're charging at home, will charge to 100%. Then the users, so if you and your wife say wanted to be different users, your settings will go with you and your wife, depending on that. Sound is self-explanatory. Then you can customize how the display looks. The shop, of course, which is how you will eventually buy over-the-air updates or features, doesn't really do a huge amount at the moment. Or your ID software, which will...
that's one thing I wanted to ask you about, because they are developing it, and...
and it's like anything else, like any operating system for your phone or anything else, they update all the time. So we're on 3.2.0, those update all the time. Often it happens in your driveway while you're asleep. So that is the latest one that they have at the moment. So there is constant updates of that, and that is sort of the benefit of these over-the-air updates. You will constantly be getting the best system, and you'll be constantly getting the best updates, any issues, bugs, but it's no different than your phone, your laptop, whatever else.
Let me ask you a few specific questions then as well, just practicality. So people, like, what are they really going to want in here? So we're going to want air conditioning and heating. So just quickly show me that.
So in terms of your air conditioning, the buttons are some people don't like them. I'm not sure where you stand on them. You can turn, this is where you would operate the air conditioning system. There are a series of temperature buttons and sliders, so you'll have your side, this side. Obviously, you can sync between those then as well. Your air conditioning, you can set with timers before you leave. So if you want your car to be toasty warm before you get into it, but you can also do that, Blake, from your mobile phone, and that's another key part. If you do own this car and you start using the software, the apps in your phone, that's where you'll really start to be able to explore things like setting timers to have it red toasty warm before you get into it in the morning.
When I got up this morning, just before I did the school run, it was -1. The whole car was frozen over. So I could have just sat in my kitchen while the kids are having breakfast, taken out the app.
Yeah, absolutely. While it's also plugged into your house as well.
So it's drawing power from the house. So I'm still leaving on 100% if I want to.
Yeah, exactly. And so look, Volkswagen have said themselves that maybe they got it wrong with some of these slider buttons and the haptic feedback buttons, and they are already going to bring about a change in the ID.3 for that, I'm told. And we would probably expect to see that rolled out in facelifts of various models, even maybe this one, because it does appear that people don't really like it. It doesn't bother me. I'm not a Volkswagen employee anymore. I can say what I like, but it doesn't bother me. I would get used to it, and I think anyone owning the car will get used to it. But I think subsequent models will see changes.
Okay. And then in terms of my phone, because this is one thing I really do like about the Buzz so far, this little pouch holder here. So you got wireless charging there, but also just a little rubberized bit at the end, which seems to grip the phone, hold it solid.
And stops it rattling about as well. But it's also next to the USB port as well. So we've had, a car I have at the moment, the Peugeot, the wireless charging port is here and the USB is down here somewhere. It doesn't make any sense. But
this is good. But so in terms of connecting with my phone now, I can plug it in there, so I'll get my Android Auto through that, but it's also got wireless through Bluetooth as well.
Yeah, exactly. So you'll be able to operate your Apple CarPlay, your Android Auto, whatever it is from there, without it actually having the need to have it wired as well. So so really an excellent system. I wouldn't be overly bothered by the buttons, but you have to remember that this unit, there's no other buttons behind it. This is a cost saving measure. To be able to use one unit and have this across a variety of models is part of the reason that electric vehicles are in some way affordable now. This car is maybe not so affordable, but it is quite remarkable. Yeah,
and I've got lots of other shortcuts over here for lights and stuff like that. And then the last thing just is these shortcut buttons down here, because these are important. So if you want, I remember when I first got into it, was like, how do I turn on the heating? There's no knobs. It was the dark.
Your climate button will immediately go to the climate system. So if you do want to press the climate button, you will have access straight away to heated seats. I mean, I was in the DS4 last week and I couldn't find the heated seats, and I believe they were there somewhere. But that will get to that quite there. The air care system in Volkswagen, which if you do, it's unavailable in this one, but if you do have that, it will do a very clever way of managing your air conditioning. Your air conditioning rather. Smart climate will allow you to warm your feet, warm your hands, cool your feet.
Well, look, I really appreciate your time. It's great because I was going to do this review and I would have given out about a couple of things and said, oh, where's that feature? I can't find it. And getting someone like yourself who knows the system and then say, it's fine. You just get used to it. There it is. This is how it works. And I suppose I'm kind of impressed by it now, although still a little bit buggy, tiny bit laggy from time to time. It definitely needs a little bit of finessing, but I'm impressed by what we can do here.
It's certainly not the worst system we've been in recently.
Oh, absolutely. That's true. It's actually doing quite well overall. Thank you very much. So that's the ID Buzz for you, an absolutely magnificent vehicle. Not perfect, still a few little foibles in there. I'm not mad on the user interface and the software system, but overall this is just stunning. It put a smile on my face like no other vehicle for a while. People are stopping to take pictures of it as I drive it around. But it's also highly practical. It's so usable. The space inside, different levels of shelving here. It's great to drive. It does so much so well and is a real great answer to all those pointless SUVs out there. I think that VW have done an amazing job in revolutionizing MPVs, what they are, taking them into the electric age. They are going to be completely sold out of these for a long time. Now, that kind of excitement, that buzz that's there at the moment, that might die down a little bit over time, but overall I think they're left with an absolute hit on their hands here.